Good day and welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 28. Spring is here, kinda. Depending on if you looked at the weather or not. But spring is here, which means hockey playoff push is here, which means we have lots to talk about around the Calgary Flames, the wild card chase, and the St. Louis Blues, who never seem to ever want to lose again. But before we get into these topics, of course, I am Johnny Stope, the host of the podcast, and alongside me is always my co-host, Robert Munich. How are we doing today, Robert?
I'm doing great, but those last couple Flames games, those were tough. Those kind of felt like the nail in the coffin in the season. Pretty disappointing to only come away with 1 point out of 4, but we move on. We continue to grind here.
We do, and the Flames continue to grind with 2 important road games coming up here back to back. We'll get into it in just a second here, but want to take time to thank everyone again for the downloads, the follows, and the shares. We've had some really good numbers the last couple of episodes, and we appreciate you being with us for all of those. Don't forget to go hit that 5-star rating and review, and please tell your friends and family about us as we continue to try to grow the podcast and bring you the best Flames content, well, anywhere, because, we are the best, right, Robert?
Absolutely.
The playoff push is here, and last week when we spoke, the math favored the Flames. The St. Louis Blues were very catchable. There's an outside chance the Wild were a little bit catchable. It looked like we were, putting the Canucks in the rearview mirror a little bit. Utah fell off, and everything was looking really good for the Flames. Fast forward a week, you mentioned it there, a couple of tough games for the Flames, unable to pick up points. They only get the one against Edmonton in the Battle of Alberta. Pretty disappointing week for the Calgary Flames in all, but nothing more. It was more disappointing for me, Robert, this last week was the lack of intensity and a little bit of a push from the Flames in that Battle of Alberta when they really needed to get 2 points. They really seemed to let one slip away. What'd you make of that Battle of Alberta and the week that was for the Calgary Flames?
Well, I mean, the week that was actually pretty good. It's funny. The worst game that they played was against the Kraken. Like, by far, they were really bad against the Kraken, but they somehow came away with 2 points, and good on them for that. But the disappointing thing is, I thought they were excellent against Dallas, probably their best effort of the season. They absolutely destroyed one of the best teams in the entire NHL. They took it to them, and yet they still lose. They lose 5-2 in that game. That is devastating for this team's playoff chances. But you really like the process there. And then with the Battle of Alberta, I mean, I just thought that was your typical Calgary Flames hockey game in the 2024-2025 season. It was tight checking. In my opinion, I thought the effort was there. I thought they played hard. They got good goaltending. They were pretty decent defensively. They didn't give up a whole heck of a lot. And then just what ended up happening was the Flames, they don't have that elite talent. They don't really have those players that can kind of elevate and put teams away. And what you saw with the Edmonton Oilers was Leon Draisaitl do exactly that. I mean, in my opinion, he's probably the best player in the NHL this season. Draisaitl's been absolutely spectacular. And he single-handedly won that game for the Edmonton Oilers with those 2 shots. And that's all it takes for him. I thought the Flames did a pretty good job, keeping the Oilers to the outside. I thought they did a pretty good job with their defending and their checking. But in the end, they weren't able to stop the best player in the world right now. And all it took for him, like I said, was 2 shots. And I don't think Dustin Wolf really stood a chance on either of them. Both of them were absolute snipes, both off the post and in. Absolutely beautiful, spectacular shot by Leon Draisaitl. And, the elite talent there won them that game, and the Flames don't have that right now. And, that's what they want to build for in the future. Tough to do that when you're not picking in the top 10, but, that's what they're kind of going for. So, yeah, it was just kind of like that classic Flames game. They struggle to score, but they play hard, and they got decent goaltending, and unfortunately just were only able to pick up the 1 point. And between that and the Dallas game, I don't know if you feel the same way, but between those 2 games, I think that's the nail in the coffin on the season. They had to pick up all 4 points there. Just with the way they played against Dallas and the fact they had a 1-goal lead late in the third period against Edmonton, they had to put those 2 games away, and they really dropped the ball there. And I think that's really going to hurt their chances.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about the disappointment of last week, that's exactly what I'm referring to. It's not that you love that effort against Dallas, but the the 3 or 4 mistakes the Flames made ended up in the back of the net. You loved a lot of what they did against the Oilers defensively, but offensively, the Oilers did the same thing to the Flames, where they kept them to the outside, and there wasn't a lot to be held there for the Flames. And without that elite talent, they were unable to force the issue like we saw with Mikko Rantanen and Wyatt Johnston and Leon Draisaitl. Those guys took the next step and pushed the pace of the game and were able to finish their chances, and thus finishing the Flames' chances, in my opinion, of a playoff spot. We have numbers, and I'm not a big Jason Gregor fan because he's an Oiler guy, but he put out a tweet last night that it's really hard to argue with the math here. The Flames and the Canucks are pretty much mathematically eliminated, he says. If St. Louis goes 4-3 and the Wild go 4-4, Vancouver or Calgary to get in would have to go 7-0-1, and Calgary would have to go 8-2 down the final stretch. So it's not mathematically done. It's not impossible to get that have that happen, but that's a tall task, right? You're asking a lot from a lot of situations to go your way now to make the playoffs. Dropping those points to Dallas and to Edmonton were absolutely devastating for the Flames in their playoff chases. Put aside what St. Louis has done, what Minnesota has done, what Vancouver's done. The Flames, unfortunately, were unable to help themselves out. And if you can't help yourself out, then you're just relying on everyone else to do it for you. And that's never a recipe for success in the league. No matter which team you are here. These games really showed us, Robert, as well, that something that we've talked about multiple times on the podcast and in conversations and on my former podcast about, you just need that elite talent to push you over the edge. We saw it on the weekend. The Oilers were only okay in that game, but Leon was the difference because he has that elite shot, that elite skill, that when it matters, he puts the puck in the net. The Flames lack that right now. All due respect to what Nazem Kadri and Huberdeau have done for the Flames this year, they just don't have that. And at the end of the day, I think that's going to be the downfall of this team. They just don't have enough to push them over the edge. So yeah, I really think they are officially done here. On the math doesn't say so, and it's a pretty disappointing way to say it. It's going to take a lot, but in your opinion, is there a way that they can still make it happen besides just the math? Is there a way or a path forward for you, Robert, that this team can still make the playoffs? Is there any reason to give our listeners any hope here?
There's definitely not a realistic path. Like sure, there's a path, like you said. Like, you know, if the Flames end up going 8-2 in their final 10 games or 9-1, sure, they might be able to get in. That's not going to happen. It's just completely unrealistic. The Flames, you know, they had their 5-game win streak to start the season. Since then, they have not been able to put together a run like that all year. And I don't see that happening between now and the end of the season. I really don't. So it's grim. So basically, you need the Flames to essentially win out. And they play some really good teams between now and the end of the season. And so that's probably not going to happen. But then on top of that, you also need St. Louis to stop winning, which, you know, they're a juggernaut right now. They're going to continue to keep winning. They're a really good hockey team as currently constructed. And then you need Minnesota to basically lose every game between now and the end of the season. And that's another thing I just don't see happening. So it's tough, man. The future here, like the next 10 games, it's pretty grim. And we're looking at the Flames kind of finishing in that peak sadness of missing the playoffs, but also not finishing in the bottom 10 of the league. Right now, they're at 80 points. If they need to get to the bottom 10, they're 6 points away from that. So the New York Islanders are at 74 points. The Flames are at 80. So the Flames would almost need to lose every game between now and the end of the season for them to fall into the bottom 10. So they're right in the mushy middle. They're right in peak sadness, and that sucks. It's literally the worst thing that could have happened this season, and unfortunately, that's kind of the direction that we're heading right now. I mean, do you see any sort of realistic path to the playoffs right now, or even the bottom 10?
No, the math both ways is not great. The only way I see the Flames getting bottom 10, if that's the path you want to choose, is lottery luck. And well, we all know how that works when you have like a 0.1% chance or a 1.2% chance. It's hard to base any hope on that. And the math, you really have to have a team that's been scorching hot all of a sudden fall off to 400, having a 400 win percentage in order for you to have a chance. And it's something that this team has to do. They haven't done since the beginning of the season, like you mentioned, Robert, is they have to put together 7-8 wins type of thing in a row here, picking up points against some very good teams, starting with the Avalanche on Monday night. You have Los Angeles later in the year. You have Vegas coming up. It's just, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer because the playoff chase has been fun. But at the same time, you got to be realistic here. The math isn't great. Your team is not a great team. Let's be honest here. We saw Dustin Wolf fall off a little bit, and we see Dustin Wolf not be an elite goaltender for full 60 minutes. We see what happens is this team doesn't have the ability to take themselves out of the pit. You have an elimination number, according to Ryan Pike, an elimination number of 6.5. That's a combination of St. Louis wins and Calgary losses. That's a very small margin of error when you only have 10 games left. So I just don't see it, man. I really, really don't. And it's unfortunate to say because peak sadness is the one scenario. We both said it on the podcast. One of two things we'd love to see: a good playoff run, push, and make the playoffs, or fall right off so we get that opportunity for a top 8-9 pick and find some elite talent here. The Flames are going to do that third scenario that nobody wanted. They're going to finish right there, a chance for that 15th pick to go to Montreal, and the Flames will have to wait to see wherever New Jersey ends up and Florida ends up to have their other picks in the round. They still have 2 first-round picks, which is great, but man, having that top 10 pick would have been awesome. Anything else you have from the weekend that was the Battle of Alberta, the last week here, Robert, before we move on here and talk about Nazem?
Well, I mean, I thought you made an interesting point there when you were talking about the goaltending, because we've loved the season Dustin Wolf has had, but when you take a look at the Flames' last 10 games, they're 5-3-2, so pretty much 500, 5 wins, 5 losses. And the goaltending hasn't been at the level that it was at the beginning of the season. Like, you take a look at Dustin Wolf's numbers over his last 8 starts, he has an .888 save percentage and a 3.08 goals against average. And when Dustin Wolf has those types of numbers, the Calgary Flames lose more than they win. And we've seen that in Dustin Wolf's last 8 starts. They're 3-3-2. So 3 wins, 5 losses. And when like I said, when Dustin Wolf is not playing at that elite level, the team's in trouble because they can't score. And I mean, we saw that in Edmonton. The Flames, they couldn't get that third goal. They just could not do it. And they're playing against Calvin Pickard, and they're playing against an Edmonton team that's not the best defensive team in the NHL. And they still couldn't get to 3 goals. And Dustin Wolf, the Draisaitl shots were remarkable. I don't think many goalies are stopping that, so I don't want to put the blame on him. But when Dustin Wolf allows more than 2 goals, the Flames lose more than they win. And he needed to make one of those saves there. And I don't blame him for it, but if the Flames want to win games, they have to win 2-1, 1-0, and sometimes 3-2. And when Wolf is giving up 3, they lose. So it's tough. It's a tough way to go about winning hockey games when you have to rely on a rookie 23-year-old to keep you in every single night. Like, the team, they need that more. They need more dynamic scoring. They need just that punch that can just kind of get them over the top and win them games by getting that extra goal. And they're not getting that right now. I mean we saw it against Dallas too. 100%. The Flames, it was crazy how much they dominated that game. They had, what they finished with 48, 50 shots on goal, and could only get 2 past Casey DeSmith, the backup goalie. They could only score 2 goals on 50 shots against Casey DeSmith. It's just they're lacking that scoring punch, and it's really, really killing them. It's killed them all season. And yeah, like we've kind of just been saying, when Wolf isn't a top 3 goalie in the world, they lose more than they win, and that's really, really hurting them. It's hurting their playoff chances right now.
So in just shy of 80 shots against DeSmith and Pickard, the Flames got 4 goals.
Not good enough.
It's not good enough, and I don't want to let Dustin Wolf off the hook, because when you have a goaltender, you need your goaltender to make those saves when he needs to make those saves. But at the same time, I really found myself in those 2 games against Dallas and Edmonton thinking the same thing. the defensive structure wasn't as strong as we've seen it in the past. You saw Miramanov get absolutely walked by Wyatt Johnston. You saw Jake Bean with the most lazy stick check after Miramanov gets beaten by Wyatt Johnston. You saw a lazy ball poke at Leon Draisaitl on the tying goal. Like, you just don't have enough there when your defense isn't going to help bail your goaltender out a little bit when your goaltender needs it. You need your goaltender to make those saves, but at the same time, you need the people in front of the goaltender to also be there and make the plays that you need to make, and the Flames just haven't done it. The transition game absolutely killed the Flames in the last couple of games here. You saw them against Dallas take the play to Dallas for a good chunk of that hockey game. But every time there was a turnover in the neutral zone or a lazy back check, Dallas was having their way with the Flames of the defensive end. And unfortunately, Dustin Wolf can only do so much for you. So yes, you need the saves, but we see what happens when you're not getting the saves. Sometimes the goalie needs the team to bail him out because he's been bailing out the Flames all season long. These were the kind of games that you needed someone else to step up here other than Dustin Wolf to help him out a little bit. And of course, scoring that third and fourth and fifth goal absolutely helps your goaltender, because if the Flames got that third goal against Edmonton, rather than Draisaitl tying the game up, it's still 3-2. Or you kill the spirits of the Oilers a little bit because you have a 2-goal lead late in the third period. You have to play situational hockey and help yourself out here, and they just haven't done it. And it's unfortunate. Let's flip the script a little bit here, Robert, and talk about something that's been absolutely awesome for the Flames, though. Let's talk about Nazem Kadri, because he has been a difference maker, and he seemingly is the Flames offense right now. In the 72 games he's played, he's got the 58 points, 30 goals again for Nazem. He's playing nearly 20 minutes a night. He's playing almost 3 minutes of power play time a night. He's got 7 power play goals, 20 power play points. We can go on and on and on about what he's done for the Flames. But how important for you has Nazem Kadri been? How much praise should we really be giving number 91?
Oh, I mean, if it wasn't for Nazem Kadri, the season would have been over 5, 6, 7 games ago. Like he has just been phenomenal over the last 10 games. And just like some numbers to put into context, like he's got 12 points in his last 10 games, 8 goals and 4 assists. He's 16th in the NHL in scoring over that time, 2nd in the NHL in goals. Like that is phenomenal for a guy who's 34 years old. Came into Calgary, supposed to be a second line center. And he's just kind of shattered all expectations. Like he's just been phenomenal. And one of the things that like a knock against Nazem Kadri during his time in Calgary was that his underlying numbers, were not very strong for his first couple years in Calgary, and they weren't very strong in like the first half of the season. But he's been starting to turn that around as well. Like the Flames dominate when he is on the ice over the last 10 games. Like you look at the shot attempts are 209 to 141 for the Flames. Scoring chances 96 to 60 for the Flames when Kadri's on the ice. High danger chances 37-29. Like these are big time numbers. The Flames just cave in their competition when Kadri's been on the ice recently, and I think the eye test definitely meets those numbers. Like you just watch him, and he's dominating right now. He's so confident when he's skating the puck up the ice. He's making lots of plays. The clutch goals, like it seems like every goal this guy scores is just a massive one. It's not like it's in garbage time. It's not like it's a goal in the first 5 minutes of a hockey game. It's always like third period. The season's on the line. Everything's on the line. Like the Flames, they need to get momentum back, and he's the guy to do it. And it's been awesome. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I love that Morgan Frost is starting to call him Showtime. I think that's just such a sick nickname. Love that. So he's been great. It's pretty much been him and Huberdeau, Weegar, and a little bit of Coronado. Those 4 guys have been kind of running the show right now for the Calgary Flames offensively, and man, they need others to step up, because just put yourself in like the position you're like Blake Coleman or Joel Farabee or Yegor Sharangovich, like one of those guys. You're on the bench. You're watching Nazem Kadri work his balls off. You're watching Nazem Kadri score big goal after big goal after big goal. You're watching this guy be clutch. He's physical. He's engaged. It's just like, how do you not watch that and get like fired up yourself? Like, how are those guys not stepping up right now when they see a guy like Kadri being that type of leader and that type of player. Like, it kind of bothers me a little bit. So, absolutely love what I've seen from Nazem Kadri lately. I don't know how sustainable it is, but man, this guy's just been phenomenal in these last 10 games. It's just been so much fun to watch.
When we saw Nazem Kadri at the end of that first year that he was here and down the stretch, it kind of looked like he gave up a little bit. We saw Nazem Kadri be part of that mass exodus last year, and the emotions around the team weren't very high. He said something at the end of that season and coming into this season that he wants to be here and he wants to be part of the solution of this Calgary Flames and their push forward in this rebuild. And he wants to be a leader. And I heard him say all those things and I'm like, okay, but I need to see them. Like, I want to see them because we saw you almost give up in year one. We saw you ho-hum in year two, slowly getting a little bit better, but you weren't leading per se, in my opinion. But he came into the season, and he said all those great things, and he was fired up. And you saw him come out of the gates a little bit slow this year, and you're like, okay, yeah, you were a lot of talk, Nazem. But then all of a sudden, something clicked. Something clicked in this guy around that 8th or 9th game of the year, and he took off. And all we've seen from this guy is every week he's just a little bit better. Every day we see he's just a little bit more of a leader. And now we've seen him in the last month or so here just put this team on his back offensively. Literally, he is the Flames offense right now, scoring game winners, overtime winners, tying goals, clutch moments. You see him on the bench talking to guys, lifting up other guys. He talks in the media about how much he enjoys Coronado, or how the play of Frost has been inspiring to him, or how he enjoys what he's seen from Mackenzie Weegar on the back end. This guy is an absolute leader of this hockey team on and off the ice, and he's showing it with every single time every shift he's on there. He's noticeable every single night. Of course, how sustainable is it? We'll get into that in a second here, but for right now, he's riding a hot wave for the Flames, and the Flames absolutely needed it. And these young kids, they see Nazem Kadri work, and I'm with you. I need to see more from other guys here, because this guy's showing these kids how to go out about their business. Sharon Govich, how are you not fired up to go play with this guy given the opportunity with the Zari injury? How are you not fired up to be on a power play with him if you're Morgan Frost and can push a little bit further and do a little bit more for the Calgary Flames? So it's Nazem Kadri right now. If it wasn't for Dustin Wolf, he would be the clear-cut MVP of this team. He's the clear-cut leader of this team. All due respect to Michael Backlund. And this guy's doing it all by example. He's not just saying things in the media anymore. He's following up with it. He's pushing the pace of this team. And he's been absolute revelation for Ryan Huska, because he's out there in every single situation that you need from a guy. He penalty kills. He on the odd time. He's power play all the time. He's killing off games. He's scoring big goals. Love what we've seen from Nazem Kadri. And we can keep hyping all this praise on top of this guy, because he deserves every single ounce of it. That, though, does lead me to the next question, Robert. What do you do with Nazem Kadri this summer? This value of this player has never been higher, especially in his 30s. The Flames are in this transition period. They're still trying to rebuild, although they're still trying to be a playoff team. What do you do with Nazem Kadri with this contract that might be palatable for someone right now, given the value you're getting from the guy? But also, he brings a ton of value to the Flames. Where are you at with Nazem and the future with the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about, because you want this guy, you want this type of person as part of your organization for as long as possible. Like, when you're thinking about the short-term outcomes, like, you definitely want Nazem Kadri on your team, but at the same time, like, the way, like, if I were Craig Conroy and the management team, the way I would approach pretty much every decision I make is, what decision do we make? Like how is that going to help us 3 years from now? I would take a long-term approach with pretty much every single decision that they make. Like, when it comes to Nazem Kadri, sure, he's having a fantastic year, like pretty much a career year. He's put the team on his back. He's a leader, like everything that we just mentioned there. But at the same time, where's he going to be 3 years from now? Where's he going to be when that new building opens? Where's Nazem Kadri going to be when the Calgary Flames want to turn into a true, legitimate contending team? And I think they have to take advantage of his value being at an all-time high. This summer, like I said, if I were Craig Conroy, this summer, I would absolutely put Nazem Kadri on the trade market, and I would look to move him. I definitely would. And like I said, in the short term, that sucks because he's become such an important part of the team, both on the ice and off the ice. But at the same time, you have to look, like I said, 3-4 years down the road, and you have to cash in on this guy because his value will never be higher. It'll never be higher. I can guarantee it. He's going to be 35 years old next year. How many 35-year-olds in the NHL continue to progress and continue to get better? It just doesn't happen. So, even we kind of saw it last year with Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman scores 31 goals. His value would have never been higher. They probably should have moved him when you just take a look at it from an asset management standpoint. I approach it with Nazem Kadri the exact same way. From an asset management perspective, you have to move him. His value will never be higher. You'll be able to get pieces for the future for him. You'll also be able to get off that $7 million of cap space and apply that to some of your younger players and sign some younger free agents. I think you have to move him. And like I said, it sucks. It sucks to say that because he's been great and he seems like a great guy and he seems like he's been a fantastic member of this organization for the last couple of years here. And he's done a great job in kind of setting the tone and building that improved culture that we've seen. But you have to move him. You have to move him. That's kind of where I stand. How about yourself?
If this guy was 3 or 4 years younger, this wouldn't be a conversation. This would be a nope. He's your number one center. He's who you build this team with. No question about it, based on what he's done this past season for us. Because at 30, 31, you can still get those seasons out of him. I don't know if we're going to see this again next year or even 2 years from Nazem Kadri. So I'm very similar to you, Robert. This is all about sticking to your plan, sticking to building your team. If you were Craig Conroy, you have to take the approach of how can this benefit my team? How can I get the most out of this? And Nazem Kadri right now, you mentioned it, and I absolutely agree here. This value is never going to be higher. It just isn't. You're not going to get better with age. This isn't a glass of Chardonnay in someone's basement. This is a hockey player that we know they fall off, and they usually fall off right around where Nazem Kadri is in his career. And this isn't trade Nazem Kadri because I don't like Nazem Kadri type of conversation. This is capitalize on a situation that's in front of you, realizing the value you have here and where you're trying to go. You're not trying to be this exact same team next year again and try to fight for that second wild card. You want to start building towards being in the top 3 of the Pacific Division, start pushing towards being one of those elite teams of the conference, and so on and so forth. So I think you need to take the value that Nazem Kadri brings. This is a palatable contract given where the salary cap is going, and the need around the league for centers is absolutely evident. You look at teams like Carolina Hurricanes who could use another center. You look at what the Rangers are trying to do. You look at what Pittsburgh's trying to do. There are teams around the league that could use the center that they can help build this team around, their playoff teams around, their pushes around, where the Flames are just trying to build something here, hopefully. And unfortunately for Nazem, his age is the biggest factor here because when you turn 35, I'm 41 soon, and I know how it goes. When you turn 35, your knees start to go, your back starts to go just a little bit more each and every year. You deteriorate a little bit more, and you slow down as a human being. That's just how it is. That's nature. Not everyone's Tom Brady. Not everyone gets a little bit better into the 40-year-old age. It just doesn't happen that way. And unfortunately for Nazem, his age works against him, but he's been such a good soldier for the Flames. I think putting him as well, this could be a good thing for him. Putting him on a team that can contend for another playoff run might be good for Nazem at this point of his career. Yes, he's won a Stanley Cup, but you know that guys are going to want a second or a third Stanley Cup. Give him an opportunity to go chase another one here because he's absolutely earned the right to do that kind of thing. As good a soldier as he's been for the Flames. I want to talk some prospects here, Robert, but I want to say if there's anything else from Nazem Kadri from you, let's have it now before we move on here.
Well, just the only issue with trading him is that he does have a full no move clause. Yeah. Of course, he has a full no move clause. Brad Treliving,
who doesn't?
Clause. If you're signing a contract with Brad Treliving, you're basically guaranteed a no trade or a no move clause. That guy just gives them out like candy.
Especially if you're in your 30s. Especially.
Yes, exactly. So that kind of complicates things a little bit. Like, I wonder if you could work with him. I wonder if you could say, like, hey, give us 10, 12 teams to work with here. And if Kadri does do that, I think they could get a pretty decent return for him. Like I think there's got to be a team out there that's going to want that guy, especially with the cap going up. The $7 million, isn't as big a deal as it was the last couple seasons here. So, or Nazem Kadri, he could be a prick about it too, and he could say, "Hey, I only want to go to one or two teams. I only want to go to the Florida Panthers or Vegas Golden Knights." In that case, you're probably not going to get as much for him. So that whole situation is going to be super interesting. And one other thing I just want to talk about.
Yeah.
We've kind of discussed it a little bit here, but just, man, like, you need to get more out of a lot of forwards on this team right now, because it's basically the Huberdeau and Kadri show, with Coronado kind of chipping in every now and then. But like, you take a look at the forward group right now, like Sharon Govich, I know he scored on Saturday, but after that goal, he was invisible once again. They need so much more from that guy. Morgan Frost, I really like the process of Frost's game. Like, I think he's been really effective, but just chances just have not been going in for him. Like, you need more production out of him. You need more production out of Farabee, Martin Pospisil, Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund, Ryan Lomberg. I know you're not paying Ryan Lomberg to be an offensive generator, but you still need more out of that guy. Like, there's 7 forwards out of the 12 that really need to pick it up. Like, if they're going to want to win 7-8 games between now and the end of the season, those guys, they all have to step their game up, because you can't just rely on Kadri and Huberdeau to score goals every single game. It's just not realistic. Out of those kind of guys, who do you think they need more from? And I'd be curious to get your opinion on Lomberg, because I've started to see some people on social media. I started to see some conversation about people starting to kind of call him out for the lack of production.
We had a conversation after recording last week about Ryan Lomberg, and we were talking about how we didn't know if this was a guy we should talk about on the podcast, or how we should approach this topic on the podcast. Frankly, for me, Ryan Lomberg, where are you? That's where I'm at with Ryan Lomberg. I don't even see when his fourth line's on the ice. I don't see what Ryan Lomberg brings to the ice at this present time. I don't see what we saw in Florida with the Panthers. I don't see the big hits. I don't see he likes to talk from the bench, but where is it on the ice? He's not pushing guys around. He's not giving questionable hits out. He's not doing enough for me. He's not even bringing the energy we've seen. That fourth line as a whole, Klapka versus Edmonton aside, has been very, very meh, very mediocre, very underwhelming. It's almost like that line as a whole gets a shift just to give the other 3 lines an extra 30-second rest. That's what it feels like to me. And it's almost like the Flames are wasting that fourth line. And it's Lomberg. Where are you? It's Rooney. You got to do more than penalty kill, my dude. And Klapka, that game versus Edmonton, where has that been the rest of this season? You need more of that from him. And if it's Hunt in the lineup, same thing. You've got to get stuff from those bottom guys. As for your question about who do you need to see more from, you listed out a nice list there. Sharon Govich, you need more than 1 goal every 17 games. Farabee's gone invisible for large stretches here. Frost, I'm right there with you. Frost, the process is great, but we need to start finishing here. Could say the same thing about when Zari was healthy. He was engaged. He was there. His motor was going. But we need points. You need to push the pace a little bit more if you're these guys. And the guys that play with Farabee, both Backlund and Coleman have been only okay. I know Backlund's been injured, but you're back now, Captain. You got to provide what you provide to the lineup. Coleman's got to bring a little bit more. You need to have anybody on this lineup other than Huberdeau or Kadri step up here and add some secondary scoring. Anybody would be great stepping up here, because when you're scoring 2.4 goals a game, you're not going to win a lot of hockey games here. We talked about helping out Dustin Wolf. Same as said for Dan Vladar. Help these guys out here. We need more goals. Now you have to help out Kadri a little bit here. You just can't rely on a 34-year-old centerman to be your entire offense. And so you need to have these other guys step up. Otherwise, you're never going to get where you are going here. You asked me about Lomberg. I kind of spieled there a little bit. What are your thoughts on Ryan Lomberg on that fourth line here? What we're seeing or really not seeing from these guys?
I really like what Lomberg brings off the ice. Like, if you watch the behind the scenes documentary the Flames are producing this year, The Chase, Like he's the star of the show. And like he's the guy that brings energy to that locker room. He's the guy that brings that positivity to the locker room. I bet you he's been a massive part of turning the culture around behind the scenes. So I love that part of Ryan Lomberg, and I do think that there's a lot of value there. And I do think that you can have like 1 or 2 roster spots in the NHL for guys like that. Because I do think that's important. I like when you're building a culture, whether it's in the NHL or even at your own place where you work, I think you need people to bring positive energy, and you need those people to be culture builders and culture setters, and he's definitely that. So I respect that, and I appreciate that about him. At the same time, he's got 1 goal in 70 games this year. He's got 8 points in 70 games. It's just you need a little bit more, and I don't think that's asking too much of him, because like if you take a look at his past, last season in Florida he scored 5 goals. The season before that he scored 12. The season before that he scored 9 in 55 games. The season before that he scored 2 in 34. Like he can score 5 to 10 goals a season. He should be a guy that can put up between 15 and 20 points. And it just hasn't really been happening. And like you said, when he's out there, just like nothing really gets accomplished. He's not like as physical as I want him to be. He's not driving play as much as I think you'd want him to be. Like it's just you just need a little bit more. But he's not. I don't think he's like the main issue. Like 2 guys I look at right now that I think the Flames need way more out of, and I mentioned their names already, but I think you need a lot more out of Joel Farabee. I mean, you traded Andrei Kuzmenko for him, and Kuzmenko was, he was starting to really get his game together at the time when the Flames moved him. And if you take a look at Kuzmenko's numbers, so between his time in Philadelphia and Los Angeles, he's played 20 games. He's got 12 points. Between Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, they have a combined 13 points between the 2 of them since coming to Calgary. So Andrei Kuzmenko alone is just 1 point shy compared to what Frost and Farabee have put together in terms of offensive output so far. Like Farabee, 5 points in 21 games. That's like a 19-point pace over 82 games for a guy making over $5 million. That's not good enough. Morgan Frost, 2 goals in 22 games. He's only got 8 points. 8 points in 22 games. That's roughly like a 30-point pace over 82. Like those are 2 guys that you brought in to create offense this season, and you gave up, a guy, like I said, who was starting to really pick up his game in Andrei Kuzmenko. You gave up a 2nd-round pick, and you gave up a young prospect who was beloved in that locker room. Mm-hmm. And you're not getting much out of it. Like I said, you like what Morgan Frost provides. Like I like the idea of Morgan Frost, and I like the way he's been playing overall. But gosh, you need some more production out of these guys, especially Farabee. Like 5 points in 21 games, that's just not good enough for a guy who's as talented as he is. So, between those 2 guys and Sharon Govich and Blake Coleman, like you just need more. You need more out of every single one of those guys. And if they don't start providing that literally as soon as tonight against Colorado, the season is over. It is. I mean, it's already kind of at that point, but it's going to get even further down that road if those guys don't start producing more.
You speak of help, and sometimes we look on the outside for help for this team, and it's hard to say that a college guy could be that help. But the Flames have an opportunity here with Suniev. I can never pronounce his first name, so I'm just going to call him Suniev, to sign a prospect here out of UMass. The guy with 52 points in 59 games played over 2 years in college. Could Suniev be a guy the Flames sign, in your opinion? And if they do, is this a guy that can provide any sort of help for the Flames offensively, or is this AHL type of guy? What are your expectations for Suniev here with his season coming to a close in UMass?
Yeah, I mean, if they do end up signing him, I highly doubt that he would be an impact maker at the NHL. Like, where would you put him in the lineup?
Well, we just listed off a bunch of guys who could come have a seat for a while, so I wouldn't hesitate to give him a couple of games and say Sharon Govich sits, or Farabee sits, or Lomberg sits, just to give the guy a taste of the NHL for a game or 2.
But like Ryan Huska's not going to do that.
No, like but you should.
There's no way. I agree. He should. I mean, they should have been calling up guys like Rory Cairns and William Stromgren, they should be signing a guy like Suniev and potentially getting him in the lineup. They should be doing stuff like that instead of playing Kevin Rooney every single night and playing Ryan Lomberg every single night.
Especially now that the math is absolutely awful for the Flames, right? Like this is the time of year to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, if they continue to fall out of it, I'm sure we'll start to see that with like 4 or 5 games remaining in the season. But if the Flames do end up signing Suniev, my guess is that in order to entice him to sign, they would probably want to burn that first year of his contract, and they'll probably have to guarantee him an NHL game. So my guess is that's probably the way it would happen. I would be pretty surprised if Suniev signed an AHL contract and went and played with the Calgary Wranglers this season. Although I think that would be the best for his development. Like, when they signed Matt Coronado a couple years ago, he did the exact same thing. He signed the NHL deal with the Flames. He burned the first year of his contract by playing that final game of the season, and he missed out on a playoff run with the Calgary Wranglers. And I think he should have been with the Wranglers. I get why he wanted to burn that first year. It's from a business standpoint, but Suniev's going to be in the exact same position. I hope that if he does end up signing, I hope that it's an AHL deal and that he can play with the Wranglers for the rest of the season. But I just don't see that happening. And if he does go back to college, I am not against that at all. I think the NCAA is a great development league. It'll give him a chance to get even bigger and stronger and just be more prepared to play against men. So whether he signs or not actually doesn't really matter to me. But if he does sign, my guess is it would probably be that Matt Coronado situation where they burn that first year. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win for Suniev either way, right? Like if he signs with the Flames and has an opportunity to go play at the Wranglers, I think that's really good for him. Or if he goes back to college, like you mentioned, that's really good for his development. The Suniev watch is on for the Flames as well. There's been talk as well of another call-up potentially for the Calgary Flames. Zane Perekh, who's already signed his ELC contract. His Saginaw Spirits are having a tough time, a tough go in the playoffs. They're down 2-0. Their season could be over as soon as Thursday, which means that there's opportunity at the end of the season for Zane Perekh. How likely for you, and in your opinion, would it be that the Flames recall Zane Perekh, or is that even something that you would consider at this point of the season? Because there are benefits to both leaving him off and recalling him he could play some games here for the Flames and such. How would you approach Zane Perekh at the end of the season here?
Oh, I bring him in 100%. No doubt in my mind that you have to bring him in. And whether that's just to get him like around the guys and getting him to know some of the personalities on the team and get him to practice with the NHL guys, I think that would be super valuable for him heading into next season where, he wants to make the team and he has definitely a realistic chance to make the team. And I think that would give him a nice boost. And then, like we've been talking about, the season is basically over. By the time there's probably 5 or 4 games left in the season, they will be close to mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So get him in the lineup, play him on the first power play unit, like put him out there in important situations and show him like, Zane, like this is what it takes to be a really good player in the NHL. Like you just went up against the best competition in the world. Let him take all that kind of information and let him take that motivation into the summer and go in and have your best summer from a training perspective. Come back to training camp with that experience of being with the guys, practicing at the NHL level, playing a few games at the NHL level, bring that back to training camp in September and give him the best chance to succeed next season. Like, I think it is a no-brainer. If Saginaw does in fact get ousted in the first round of the playoffs, you have to bring Zane Perekh in. It would be malpractice if the Flames did not bring that guy in for the rest of the season. I think it would be insane. So, and also, you know what? I know the team wouldn't give a crap about this, but it'd be nice for the fans. Like,
yes,
in my opinion, I know people keep saying like this has been a really entertaining, exciting year. You know what? It's peak sadness. They're in the mushy middle. You've had a nice year from Dustin Wolf, but quite honestly, they have not played very entertaining hockey. They have 2 guys who are going to be at over 60 points this season. They might have 4 guys that are over 40 points. The offense hasn't been there. The style of play is not exciting. A lot of guys have not had good years. Like there really hasn't been anybody that's had a career year outside of like Kevin Ball. who's not a rookie or a guy playing in his first year in the NHL. So it's been, in my opinion, I think it's been a bit of a slog. It's been a bit of a tough year from the perspective of the fans. Give the fans 5, 6, 7 games of Zane Perekh. I don't think that's asking too much. And like I said, Ryan Huska does not care about that. Craig Conroy probably does not care about that, but I do. And if I were in charge, I would care about what my fans think, and I want to entertain my fans. And having Zane Perekh in the lineup for the last 2-3 weeks of the season would be super exciting. It'd be a reason for fans to watch and get excited about the future of this team. So I would love to see it personally. And I'm pretty passionate about that. I'm assuming you got to be in the same boat, right? You got to bring in Zane Perekh.
I have yet to have anyone give me a valid reason to not bring him in. I've heard one person say, well, you don't want to shoot his confidence. And I think that's absolutely ludicrous. I think this is a carrot that you dangle for Zane Perekh. And I like how you laid it out there. Bring him in. Even if he doesn't play games, you bring him in around the guys. How does Mackenzie Weegar approach preparing for a game? How does Nazem Kadri go from day to day as a pro? Show this kid what it takes to be a pro, to be around the team, around the facility. Give him a carrot that he is so hungry to take what he's learned to apply it to training camp in September. Allow this guy to learn and grow. You want him to be around this team. He's going to be a massive part of your future. So bringing him in does nothing but benefit him. It benefits the group around him as well. These players will see a young kid who is hungry to come in here. It should push other veterans say, well, this kid can't take my job yet. It should motivate guys. It should motivate Zane to have himself a really good offseason. And as you mentioned, if he gets into games, fans are going to flock to the Saddle Dome for one reason, to see Zane Perekh. Like, it's going to drive your tickets as well at the end of the season, in a season where it's most likely that your playoffs are shot. They're going to be gone by that point of the season. The math's going to be absolutely eliminate the Flames. So give your fans something to come to the rink for the last couple of games, to watch these guys. How excited we were to see Dustin Wolf play games last year for the Flames. It drives people. It drives Zane. It should drive everybody. And to not bring this guy in, I don't see a benefit of not inviting this guy. To say that it's going to, you have a chance to hurt his confidence, I think is ludicrous, because this is a guy who's going to come in here. He's going to get some games. He's going to get an opportunity to learn so much from the guys around him that there is, for me, it's a win-win-win for everybody across the board. I'm all for Zane Perekh being here for the Flames as well. And I hope they give him number 19, because I have a jersey in my closet I need a new nameplate for that has 19 on it. One last bit of news I want to squeak in here. The Flames did also sign Jacob Battaglia. This guy has battled all year with the Kingston Frontenacs. His development has been off the charts. He played in 68 games with 90 points, 40 goals and 90 points in 68 games. I just wanted to give Jacob Battaglia a bit of a shout out here on the podcast, and his development for me has been one of the best stories from his draft year to now. And the Flames, I think, absolutely have a steal for Mr. Battaglia there. I don't know if you have anything to add on Battaglia.
No, I mean, just that draft class is looking really good right now.
I would expect to see Misa signed quite quickly here by the Flames as well, at the rate they're signing in this draft class and the season that he's had as well. But for right now, Jacob has been the latest signing for the Flames. Robert, where can the guys find you and your work? What's coming up on Flames Nation from you this week as well on the website there?
Yeah, follow me at Ring of Fire CGY on Twitter, and follow my work at flamesnation.ca. I've taken on some more work social media wise at Nation Network, so I haven't been writing as much lately, but maybe I'll throw out a couple articles over the next week or two here. But yeah, follow me in those places.
A little behind the curtain, if you're a Blue Jays fan, pay attention to Robert's social media. You can find me at Vintage Johnny 84 across social media platforms, and you can find the show at Red Mile Rundown wherever you like to do your posting. And thanks once again for making us a part of your podcast rotations. Enjoy the games this week. It's a couple of tough games, some on the road games. The math isn't great, but the Flames still have an opportunity here if they can get on their horse and get going. So enjoy the games. We'll talk about them all again next week. Take care.